If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix that you'd like to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. Okay, so you tell me, glitch or just really strong premonition? This happened in the summer of 2000. The night before I was supposed to have my senior portraits made, so it's very vivid still, because it was the most crazy thing I have ever experienced. I will say that I have always had really strong premonitions about things. I just chalked it up to being an observant person. Anyway, my mother was away, caring for an aunt with cancer. My dad and brother had both worked outside that day, and had horrible allergies, so they took Benadryl and were out. Nobody to talk to about how I was feeling, so I called my mother. It was around 10 p.m., but I called anyway, and she answered. I told her, "Mom, I cannot go to sleep, because if I go to sleep right now, I'm not going to wake up." She asked for clarification, but all I could tell her for sure was, if I fall asleep in my bed right now, I'm going to die tonight. I can just feel it. She chalked it up to being nervous. Sick aunt, mom gone a lot, really bad breakup the Christmas before that kept me a mess since he would never really just go away. She told me to stretch out on the sofa and to sleep there. So I made my spot on the sofa. About an hour and a half later, I started feeling silly, so I grabbed my pillow and went to my bed. I barely dozed off when I was awoken by what sounded like rushing water, and then my window bursting in. That's when I saw the smoke and flames. The house next door had caught fire, and was fully engulfed. And because the houses were so close, ours caught. I got us out. I got fire and police there. I even had to have an officer get my car out of my parking spot, because as I pushed the brakes to put it into the gears, the brake pads melted to the tires. He did get it free. The only part of our house that caught fire was my bedroom. My dad called my mother to tell her what had happened, and she screamed for him to hand me the phone. She asked, "How the hell did you know what was going to happen?" I didn't. I just had the strongest feeling that I cannot explain. Going into a deep sleep in my bed at that time meant that I would never wake up. My bed was against the windows, and the charred ceiling was on what was left of my bed. To this day, she says it's the strangest phone call she's ever gotten from me, and I still cannot explain how I knew that my room was not safe that night. I just know that if I had gone to bed, I would have been killed in that house fire. Instead, we all got out safely, and insurance fixed the damage to my room. In the end, it was a bad try at insurance fraud by the neighbor who lit candles all over his house, let all the cats in the room with the candles, and then left the house. So the neighbor was fine. A horrible human, but fine. I posted this on the Glitch in the Matrix sub, and it was removed for having no witnesses. Despite having my mother and the phone calls, the entire police and fire department, my dad and brother who were in the house when I woke them to get us out. Somewhere my parents even have video of the damage for the insurance company. The fact that it was removed so quickly when so many other stories actually have zero witnesses makes me feel even more odd about sharing this story. But it's bothered me forever. So, glitch, or just a gut feeling? This happened a few months ago, but I think about it daily. For Christmas, my partner gifted me 3 pairs of earrings, all in one gift set, one of which was a pair of stars. We stayed at my mother-in-law's house for the holidays, so we were living out of bags and suitcases, and therefore I made sure that I kept the earrings in their box on the bedside table, so as to not lose them. It was a few days after Christmas that we decided to go on a girls' shopping trip in a nearby town. I chose to wear the star earrings that I was gifted, but because I had already worn the other 2 sets, and they were in my jewelry bag, this was the last set left in the original box. I put them on, and I left the empty box as a reminder to put all 3 sets back in when we returned home. As we're leaving, my mother-in-law compliments my earrings, and I jokingly do a pose to show them off. It's a few hours later, and I'm in a store's changing room trying on clothes, when I notice I'm only wearing 1 earring. I didn't feel it fall out, but I check the cubicle and retrace my steps around the store in hopes that it may have fallen out recently. My mother-in-law even acknowledges that 1 is missing once we reunite outside the store, so I know for sure that I was wearing them both before we left the house. I cut my losses and accept that it likely fell out hours ago, and it would be impossible to find. So we continue about our day. I leave the lonely earring in as I didn't want to damage it in my purse, but I keep checking it's there every so often. When we return home, I'm sorting through the items I've purchased, and go to put away things when I see the earring box on the bedside table. It has 1 star earring in it. It's still hooked into the original card with the backing on it. I just froze, thinking I had lost my mind and only put in 1 earring this morning, and misremembered, but grateful that I still had a complete set after all. I took the earring to the mirror to put it in, and there I see that I'm not wearing the other one. It completely disappeared. I know it was there not even 5 minutes before, as I had looked in the car mirror just before I came into the house. But now it's gone. So somehow, I had left the house with 2 earrings in, came home with none, and found 1 still in the packaging. This was a long time ago. I was sitting in a science class studying a book containing various diagrams that the science teacher had asked us to examine. Despite being able to intently focus on the book, regardless of the ruckus of the classroom, I could never quite block out the noise of people talking. One trick I would use to help counter this is that I would tune in onto other people's conversations and listen to what they were saying, whilst I was reading and studying. This helps manage distractions and noise. Whilst reading, I overheard a conversation by the teaching assistant. A teaching assistant is somebody that goes around the room helping pupils one-on-one, although they might also be assigned to pupils with so-called special needs, like myself. Sometimes they would do both. In this case, she was having a social conversation with one of the disruptive female pupils. They were talking football. She regaled her with an older tale that she, a Scottish teaching assistant, who moved down to England from Scotland, had supported this obscure Scottish football club, and that, previously, she had told another pupil about it, and much to her surprise and delight, found out that the other pupil had heard of the team and supported it. I took a sort of half-assed note about it. It was football and wasn't of much interest to me. I did wonder what the probability would be of a Scottish teaching assistant supporting an obscure Scottish football team in England, finding another pupil, who I presume is non-Scottish, also supporting said football team. But this isn't where it gets weird. Several days later, on a Friday, and I remember it clearly as I had a weekend to ponder it, I was sitting in a history lesson along with the same Scottish teaching assistant. Now, as a teenager, I was rude and impulsive, and I regret being that kind of jerk, but this is probably one of the only times it paid off. The Scottish teacher started to regale the history teacher with the tale of the football club. I rolled my eyes. She'd already told this one. Back in the science lesson a few days earlier. I rudely interrupted and said, "She's already told this one before," I commented. Shocked, she looked at me. Why was she shocked? It was true. "No, I haven't," she remarked. I started to experience a sense of vertigo, like something had gone very horribly wrong. "You haven't?" I asked. "Nay," she said in her usual Scottish accent, and then angrily she pipped up. "But if you know the story so well, you can tell her." Still confused, but confident that I had heard it plain as day, and she was either losing her marbles in her old age or pulling a prank, I told the history teacher almost word for word what she told the pupil. The fact that she supported an obscure Scottish football club, and the fact that the first pupil she had told both heard of it and supported it. "That's right," she pipped, but her voice got low and serious. "But I never told anybody." We looked at each other and she said, "Where did you hear it before?" "Science. The other day." I said we could ask the science teacher to verify. She overheard the conversation. We headed down to the science teacher as soon as the history lesson was over. I was confused. Was this an elaborate prank? I was going to make sure to keep tabs on both their faces to see if there were any tells that they were lying. But when we got down there, the science teacher said she had never told the story. Their faces told me that neither were lying. I was shocked. I said to the Scottish teaching assistant, "I don't know what to tell you. This is where I heard it." She replied, "I believe you. There'd be something weird going on." The week after, I even identified which pupil she spoke to, but even they said they never spoke with her. That same Friday, I was walking home. The weirdness of the day was already overwhelming. The vertigo was still there. You could only describe it as the kind of sensation you'd get if you got off after spinning around many, many times on a children's roundabout, but also were shook up. I was attempting to logically process this. I generally don't express emotions. When I saw a man working in a field, and I had the most bizarre sense of intense murderous anger out of nowhere. What the hell was going on? I never get strong emotions for anything. I just ignored it and kept walking. Then, finally, I saw it. Whatever it was. I still remember the weather in the sky, the thick, dark gray clouds hanging low. The clouds had pulled back to reveal this silver object in the sky. It was silver gray, metallic, reflective, shiny, and it kind of looked like a bubbled egg shape. I was attempting to analyze it rationally. I thought maybe it was a children's toy blimp, one of those silver ones. It looked like part of the outer hull was spinning and going into the back tail section. What the hell? I wasn't ready for such weirdness. It must be a children's blimp. It angled up at a 45-degree angle stationary, and just instantly accelerated to a high speed into the cloud, as if it had just realized it had been spotted and was fleeing the scene. What the heck? Was it observing me? Was it responsible for the weird stuff earlier? It was too high up to be a children's blimp, as high as the rain clouds. It angled itself unlike a children's blimp, as blimps don't point up, and moved too fast to be a children's blimp. They don't just shoot off. Everything I knew about aviation at the time, we don't have any aircrafts that work like that. I stared at this empty space dumbfounded. I did my best to memorize as many details as I could. I was someone who didn't think UFOs were even real before then. I had insisted time before that they were all explainable phenomena. When I tried to tell people, naturally nobody would believe me. And how could I prove it? I had no proof. I couldn't tell you exactly how high up it was, or how fast it went, but that day was the single weirdest day in my life. I've never quite had a day like it since. I wonder if it was somehow responsible for what happened at the school, but then, what did it do? Move me to an alternate timeline? Does this mean UFOs are some sort of time machines? And how did it do it without me noticing? Or what if, even more bizarrely, it is totally unconnected? And why did the sense of vertigo only happen after the teaching assistant told me she had never told the story before? Why even vertigo? I've hardly told anybody else about this story, on account of how weird it sounds, but your channel makes me feel that I should share it. Hopefully it gives someone else some insight. Me and my husband are quite in shock after experiencing something really weird yesterday. Some background. 1 year ago, March 2023, during our travels to Vegas, we went to a taco spot called Tacos El Gordo. There was a long line, and while in line, the guy in back of us started making conversation. It was a very high-spirited guy with braces that explained he was staying at a hotel nearby and had come the previous night with his wife and kids to get some tacos. They really liked the tacos, so they had to come back. He shared that they had flown in from the Pacific Northwest, a bit about his job and his wife's. His wife and children eventually joined him. They hang out for a bit in line with him, and then they head back out to find a seat. These details matter later on in this story. We share a bit about ourselves, do some more small talk, and we finally get to the front of the line, order our food, and say goodbye / nice to meet you. And that's it. Never see them again. Totally forget about this incident. Present day, 1 year later, March of 2024. We took a weekend trip to San Diego. We've never been there, so we wanted to check it out. I want to add some context to this day, because I think it's important to note all of the things that had to happen, or change, for the event to have happened. First of all, out of all the weekends, it decided to downpour in San Diego this weekend, so we had to readjust our plans. We planned to do those trolley hop-on, hop-off rides to the main sightseeing locations in San Diego. Unfortunately, because it was raining so badly, the trolley decided to limit the number of shuttles that passed by, leaving us stranded in the first location we hopped off. So we came up with a plan B, which was to make our way to museums in Balboa Park to wait for the rain to stop, and then head to a few other neighborhoods once we got some clear skies. Once we got through all of that, we headed back to the neighborhood we were staying at. Tried out a bar, but we weren't feeling the vibe. We walked for a bit and finally decided to head to where the event occurred. So, the event. My husband suggested that we should go to a taco spot I'd pinned on Google, called Tacos El Gordo. We weren't too hungry, but we might as well taste it because it had great reviews. There's a huge line. And as we're waiting in line, we realize that this is actually the same Tacos El Gordo as the one in Las Vegas we'd gone to the year before. Cool. Didn't know they had a chain. And we start talking about how we'll compare which location was better. There's a couple in front of us, and right in front of them, we notice this guy that starts chatting them up. We overheard him making small talk, asking them what they did for a living, etc. I briefly catch a glimpse of this guy, and I mention to my husband, "Hey, doesn't that guy look like the one we saw in Vegas last year? That'd be funny if it was him, wouldn't it?" Then, we stared more carefully. He doesn't have the braces anymore, but that definitely looks like him. We remember that he had his wife and kids, so we tell ourselves if we see them, then we know for sure it is him. 1 minute later, we see them. Holy crap. Our faces go white and we are stunned. To triple confirm, my husband actually goes up to the guy and asked him, "Hey, this might sound weird, but did you happen to be in Vegas last year and also went to Taco El Gordo while there?" The guy confirmed that he had been. He said his family flew in for spring break this year to San Diego. We're walking around and happened to notice that this was the same taco spot they went to while in Vegas, so they decided to stop at that moment. He actually did not remember our conversation in Vegas, but he kind of laughed and thought that it was also a weird coincidence. We again made some small talk while in line, got our tacos, and went our separate ways. But what the hell? This was just not coincidence. This doesn't happen. Ever. What is the probability that we would both end up in the same city 1 year later, at the same restaurant, same weekend, same time, only 2 feet away? Not to mention, our whole day wasn't supposed to go this way. It could have gone completely different. And yet somehow every single decision we made up to this moment led us to the same spot. We actually weren't even supposed to go to San Diego on this particular weekend. I'd originally booked it for 2 weeks prior, but realized we had plans. So we rebooked everything all over again. How does this happen? P.S. To the kind stranger that we met, see you next year in whichever city we decide to make a trip to next March. I went to a high school in a very small one-stoplight sort of town. A few years after school, I was catching up with an old friend, and she told me how these 2 boys that we knew pretty well had passed away. We'll call them Josh and Sean. I asked what had happened, and she sent me news articles about how they were working in a shop, and an air compressor had exploded and killed them both. Fast forward a few years later, and somehow it came up in a conversation I was having with my dad. I decided to try to find the news article I had previously read about it. Instead, I found an article about how Josh had been shot by people who broke into his house looking for drugs. There was actually a lot of detail in the article about the incident, and it was an unsolved crime. There was no mention of Sean at all, and I couldn't find any articles about anything happening to him. I don't have any connections any longer to anyone in the town, so I can't check to see if anyone else remembers it the original way. It's just crazy because I remember vividly reading both articles. I know for a fact that it wasn't just someone with the same name for 2 reasons. First, he had a very unusual last name, and it was a very small town. Second, there were actual photos of him provided in both articles, and it was 100% the kid I knew from school. Another strange twist is that I looked up the story again just now to see if there was anything new. It seems the case was solved, and 4 or 5 people went to prison for it. The second story has also now been featured in an episode of a TV series that I've never heard of. I'm considering trying to track it down so that I can watch it. In the 1970s, my mother, father, sister, and I returned from a grocery trip. We were shopping for some holiday, maybe Easter, and had a long list of special items. After putting everything in big paper bags on the counter, my mom asks, "Where did the ham go?" It was a huge bone-in hickory smoked ham. We had all seen it 1 second prior in its own bag because it was huge. I hadn't lifted it. Too heavy. Neither did my sister. My parents had seen it right where we stood. Questions became interrogations. Receipts were produced, every item chalked off, but no ham. To this day, that ham was never found. We had 2 trash cans, and it was in neither. Not in the yard, car, not on the porch. We'd always comment, "That's weird as the damned ham. How does something that big disappear in front of 4 people?" But it did. Well, a couple of months ago, I went to the grocery for a pack of deli ham. I paid with my card and pushed the cart out to the car. As always, I found more fun items to buy as well. Quite a few. I went to put it all away. There was no ham. 2 weeks later, again, well, the same happened. I know that it was there, but it disappeared, and that's the truth. This happened not too long ago. I was standing on my porch watching my kids play in the front yard. I had my back against the sidewall where the mailbox was looking north. Our street going that way had a crossroad intersection at the end, and I could see it from where I was. As I was watching my 2 kids, I noticed a big black truck. The kind that has floodlights at the top and bars in front of the grill, pulling up to the intersection from the left road. I saw a bald man driving, and 2 other guys in the bed of the truck, and on the sides were 2 different flags. One looked like the French flag, I believe, and the other I had never seen before. They looked like they were celebrating, and I remember wondering if their team had won a soccer game or something, because it looked like they were being loud. But the thing was, it was absolutely silent. And I could see them whooping and hollering and chanting. Anyway, they turned down my street coming towards me. I kept my eyes on them because they were intriguing me. I watched them turn down my street and start coming my way. Everything. Now here's the tricky part. My neighbor had a big SUV in the driveway that blocked off my vision from part of the road. And once that truck, those 2 flags, and the 3 celebrating men reached that part of the road, obstructed from my view by the SUV, they never came back out. I even walked down into my yard to see if maybe they had pulled up into the grass of another neighboring house. But nothing. They just vanished behind the neighbor's car. It still freaks me out when I think about it, and I still wonder what they must have been celebrating that evening. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, my friends. This was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. Stories! I don't have a title for this one. I gotta think of one real quick. Nope. I'll go roll a dice or something. I'll do random word generations to see if I can figure something out. Titling these videos is hard, so, anyways. A collection of stories of the weird, bizarre, strange, and sometimes awkward stories that occur within our simulation. Our supposed simulation, I guess I should say. Just definitely weird and sometimes creepy stories. Stories that you all seem to enjoy, and I enjoy them as well, so that's why they get posted on this channel once a week. Yeah. Nothing really to report this week to you guys. Typically I have something to say, but after complaining for almost 5 minutes about the lawn on Saturday's video, I probably shouldn't do that again, so I don't know. Sometimes it feels like my outros are kind of an ebb and flow. Some days I'm all about talking and saying random things, and some days I'm just kind of like, yeah, those are some scary stories, hope you guys enjoyed, kind of thing. It's never anything personal, it's just, it just really depends on the mood of the ending of the video, I guess. Or the mood of the day, or the weather, or how I'm feeling. How are you feeling? You feeling good? Me too. Anyways, friends, that was a collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories for this week. Hopefully you all enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button, as it helps tremendously. If you happen to be new to the channel and liked the content of these stories, consider subscribing. I do these once a week, typically on Mondays. Typically once a week. Some weeks... No, actually, I don't think there's been a week where I didn't do one for a long time. If I don't have stories or if I need a break, I'll just fill it in with a compilation. So, it's been a long time since I haven't done a glitch video. So yeah, once a week. Hence why I'm on like 100 and something glitch videos, so... Yeah. I also do other scary stories, like Let's Not Meet style stories. Gardening stories was this last Saturday. Paranormal stories, it's coming up. You know, stuff like that. Just lots of good scary stories if you want to hear them, so be sure to subscribe. You can also leave me a comment on the video, which we'll get into the specifics of that later, but if you don't want to get into the specifics of that, commenting helps as well, and it lets me say hi to you or talk to you or whatever, you know. You can also support the channel further by doing Patreon and memberships, which gets you early access to content like this, depending on what you sign up for and how you sign up. And it's as low as $1 a month to get early access to all the content. This video is going to go up a day early, this glitch video, on both Patreon and channel members. So if you paid $1 a month for the access, you would be able to watch this video on Sunday night instead of Monday night. Kind of cool, right? Never expected, but always appreciated. It's just kind of an extra thing. Since I try to be a day ahead at least, or at least, I try to be at least 6 hours ahead, which I know doesn't always work out, but, you know, I try to be at least a day ahead for the most part, and whenever I am a day ahead, you guys win if you sign up for that. But again, my content is never gatekept. I don't gatekeep my content. I don't, what is the word I'm looking for? You don't have to pay to view my content. My content is free. And watching the content is more than I could ever ask for. But if you want to support further, you can get earlier access to the content than the general population. How's that? Does that sound better? Gatekept? Gatekeeped? Gatekeeping? Keeping the gate? Gate kept gate. Gate kept. I'm keeping that gate. I'm not keeping. I'm shutting up now. The other thing you can do every week on Monday is join in on the Word of the Week. On the Word of the Week, I give you a word, you use that word in a sentence in the comments, I put that comment on the screen in a collection. Right now, and several moments prior to now, is the collection from last week. These people had the gumption to leave a comment on my video featuring the word I requested them to feature. And all of them going above and beyond to get this little thanks. So thank you to each and every single one of you. Y'all are amazing. I appreciate you. Don't ever forget that. This week, the word of the week is actually one you already heard in this outro. The word of the week is ebb. E-B-B. That is not me saying egg with a weird accented voice. That is me saying ebb, as in ebb and flow. Ebb means the reflux of the tide towards the sea, or a point or condition of decline, or to fall from a higher to a lower level, or from a better to a worse state. So, as the year goes on, views on these videos tend to ebb and flow. During the summer, they will go down. They will ebb. During the winter, or during this later on in the year and early year, they will go back up. It's a consistent thing with YouTube. It's how it works. Yeah. Use ebb in a sentence. Get featured next week. All that said, my friends, hope you're having a beautiful week so far. Hope I do see you again here very soon. But until then, remember, you are loved. You are valid. You are important. You are the best you that you can be. Don't forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love and sleep well.